What is up, guys? I'm finally here. It's happening. It's true. It's not your device acting up. I am truly, finally live again after God knows how long. And I am sorry that that happened, but technology was just absolutely not on my side. So today I finally bring something that way back in the day it was requested, and I honestly do not recall actively doing one of these. Maybe I did like a derivative of it, but it's those personality quizzes that apparently help you understand yourself better. And recently, something similar came up in the comments. I remember the guy's Avi, but I don't remember his name. But anyway, he said something that reminded me of this thing. And what he was talking about was a little different, but I guess I'll have to get into that at another time. But this time around, I decided to Google a quiz to just take to answer questions because that's honestly my favorite thing to do. That's the core of my channel. But one of the things that came up was the personality quiz. And when I thought about it, I realized that I really wouldn't know what direction it wants to take. I can only deduce. But what better way to find out than to actively participate in it? And if you look at the description, I have linked the quiz that I will be taking in case you wish to follow along, or perhaps you want to take it yourself so that you can find out what kind of person you are. So yeah, let's get started. I'm not going to read that paragraph that's included in the site. But basically, the only thing I guess I could share is that it says the big five doesn't put people into neat personality types because that's not how personalities really work. Instead, the quiz gives you a score on 5 different traits: extraversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness. I can never say that. Negative emotionality, and openness to experience. So I am eager to see. So let's go. I tend to be quiet. Okay, I already am having trouble with this because this is a major occasionally. When I'm with people I know, I can be extremely open. I can text to you a lot. I can write long emails to you. I can talk to you for hours. And on the channel, of course, since this is my own personal like tool, yes, I can be here a long time and speak as well. But in the grand scheme of things, when I'm out in public, when I'm in work, when I'm in school, I am very quiet. So I agree strongly. I am compassionate and have a soft heart. I cannot say that I have a soft heart. For me to get into detail, it would be definitely worthy of its own video. And when it comes to compassion, I like to think that I am, because I think if you don't, you're terrible. But the part that bothers me about the question is the soft heart part. So I'm gonna have to say neutral or agree a little. I'm gonna say agree a little, just because it has compassion in there. I tend to be disorganized. In my personal life, I am, but like at work and stuff, I definitely treat it religiously. So I'll say agree a little. I worry a lot. This used to be extremely true as an adolescent and as someone who is on her way to exit her 20s. I have definitely conquered that demon a whole lot. I want to say that the last time I was considerably worried, it was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. My perception of time lately has been trippy. But I had to do this massive investment that I never pictured being able to do all at once. And of course, because finances is something that when you don't have a very like strong foundation, it tends to be something that worries you. I was absolutely anxious. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was physically shaking. I never physically shake for anything. And on top of that, I really had my senses extra sharp. when it came to the things people were saying. And when I can detect that I'm worrying a lot when I am extra about the things that people are saying. Like, I always find it that you might have the worst of intentions when you're addressing me. So, in the grand scheme of things, I cannot say that I worry a lot. I stopped that. So, I'm gonna have to say that I strongly disagree. Because honestly, that kind of worry that I had recently is a natural kind of worry. And it would happen to anybody who found themselves in that situation. But regularly, day after day, I'm never worried about anything. I am fascinated by art, music, or literature. I'm definitely fascinated by music and some aspects of art, but literature, whatever. So I'm gonna have to say, because of music, definitely. I have to say agree, but can I say strongly if I really don't study it in depth? See, I give this too much brain because I really want to be like as accurate as possible so I can get the most accurate response. Since I'm not fascinated by literature, I cannot say agree strongly, but it says or. It's just asking about the arts. So I'm gonna say agree strongly as someone who has a creative brain. I am dominant and act as a leader. Fuck yes. Yes, there is no human alive, I feel, that could possibly conquer me or like subject me. The only way I'm subjected in my life is that I wasn't born into a powerful family. So like I have to take orders from others as opposed to me being in a position where I can own something so that others are actually responding to me. But outside of that, even within those circumstances, I always find myself as being the leader. For the longest time, I used to be someone who did not like to be in charge of situations because of the responsibility that incurred. I didn't like the stress associated with it, but it's just something that I'm a natural at. So now that I have gone through so many things, especially in a short amount of time, it's either you're a leader or you're just massively screwed. And I refuse to allow myself to prolong a miserable status. I am sometimes rude to others. See, this gets me because I don't actively try to be rude to people. People interpret me as being rude because of the way that I say things, which is I don't really like to sugarcoat things. I always have manners. I feel like I never actively try to disrespect you unless you're someone close to me, and that my troll mode is constantly activated with people who are close to me. But I guess sometimes I can be rude if you are not doing stuff right. I'm not someone who can say, hey, what's going on? Why is this not getting done right? It's like, no, motherfucker, what's wrong? Like, what is wrong with you? So I guess I would have to say neutral on that one because I can see why I can be perceived as rude, but it's not like I'm actively trying to be rude. So I'll just have to be neutral on that one. I have difficulty getting started on tasks. At work, I don't, but in my personal life, I can sometimes. Because oddly enough, since it's something that's due to me and it has no imposed time limit, then it doesn't induce any stress to where I feel like I need to get started on tasks with urgency. But I guess I'm gonna have to say that I disagree a little. Since it affects me in my personal life, I will have to say I disagree. I tend to feel depressed and blue. That is something that comes and goes. Sometimes it really stays for prolonged periods of time. But it's honestly because out of three aspects in my life that are uber important, one of them has never been remedied. So I feel like as long as that one is not fixed, then this status will continue to bug me with frequency. But there are other aspects of my life that are starting to take a negative turn as well, like my career. So that has been initiating its own sequence of stresses and emotions that I normally do not associate with myself, such as stress, restlessness, and just general anxiety of the kind where, say, you sleep too much or don't sleep at all, or eat too much or not eat at all. So, like that kind of depression, I guess you could say, career inflicted depression. So, in the grand scheme of things, though, as in personally, my life is significantly better compared to what it used to be between 6 through 15 years ago. So I'm gonna have to say that I am neutral on that one because I cannot say that I am incredibly jovial and blissful, but it's not like, wow, I'm miserable and I cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like maybe a few days ago, I really had those thoughts where, man, everything I'm doing is pointless. I don't know why I try. I don't know why I'm here. And I'm like, why do I feel like someone who's starting to identify who they are? I am way past that stage in my life. But then I remembered the situation that I was in emotionally. And then I said, it's not really me that's doing that thinking. It's just the challenged, stressed side of me trying to convince me that I am too exhausted to carry on. But that is never true. But me coming to that mindset tends to take a minute. So I'm gonna have to say for now on that one, I'm neutral until I resolve my career issues and then my other issues, on the three aspects of my life that matter to me the most. I have little interest in abstract ideas. Absolutely disagree strongly because you guys know that I can definitely exit this box. I am full of energy. That is definitely a strongly agree regularly, but again, if your mind is being affected, then it's really easy for you to lose some of that energy. But generally, it is a definite strongly agree. Because the best way I can prove that to myself is everyone around me. I have nicknamed everybody who has energetic issues as zombies. There are people in my phone whose name actively is zombie. There are people in my life I actively text and say, stop being a zombie. If I ever call you a zombie, there is stuff that you have to worry about, about the way you're exhibiting yourself. I assume the best about people. If that means that everyone gets a fresh start, everyone who I meet ever has like a fresh page in my life's diary, then yes. But if this means that I inherently think everyone is good, everyone is their best, everyone is their greatest, nobody has bad intentions, that is incredibly naive and that is just not true in life. So I guess I have a neutral start with you. But when you're establishing yourself in my life, that first impression really does matter a lot, as they say. But if you have a bad start with me, you're not condemned to remain in my list of people I gotta beware of. But if you don't remedy that within a reasonable amount of time, then you will stay in that list. So it's a definite neutral on that one. Because in the past, growing up, I thought the best of people. But then people taught me that there's no such thing as everyone being their best, whether you just met them or not. So to go through life thinking the best of people, maybe it helps you mentally and emotionally, but for someone like me, it just helps me to have low expectations out of everybody. I want to have high expectations of you're going to say rival my way of thinking on certain topics. You're going to be challenging when it comes to how much you can do physically before you feel like you need to give out. Like, there's a lot of people at work who I frown at because you get there at like 7 a.m. and you're already tired, you're lacking energy. And I'm thinking, okay, this person is probably someone who struggles with being up in the morning. But the hours pass and your performance doesn't improve, and it's just the same or you decline steadily. That concerns me. Why would you be that way, you know? So for that, I have to think, no, you're not at your best. That cannot be your best. So that's the way I think about that question. I am reliable and can always be counted on. Too much. And my only wish in life is to meet someone who makes me feel the same way. Because I feel like I understand that everybody's life is different. Everyone is at a different point in their lives and whatnot. But I feel like every time you encounter me, I give you my best, no matter how sick I'm feeling, how unwell I'm feeling, how physically I should not be on my feet I'm feeling. And I just wish I could meet someone who could rival that, even on a social level. Like, there are people who I really wish to engage in topics extensively. You guys know that when I sit right here, I can really carry on with the discussion unless you're throwing something at me that I have literally just never heard of before. But I am not afraid to fire up my brain power. But I feel like some people just don't even try to think, at least for like 5, 10 minutes, whatever the duration of our interaction is. And there are people who I ask them, hey, what's your view on recent events? And they really seem lacking interest when it comes to being involved, and this is a topic and a matter that affects you. You don't express that you're not in a condition to be discussing it. If you say that, I can understand. But if you're constantly in a state of mind of, I want to avoid topics that upset me, then you're trying to create an artificial peace. And once that bubble bursts, that's when the darkness comes, in my opinion. I feel like you should really value the people who arrive in your life. And let's say that you're having dinner at a table, someone just stands at the end of the table and starts shaking it up. You're going to be upset because you're trying to eat and be peaceful. And if you have, I don't know, soup on the side, it's going to start spilling. But people like that are the ones that I yearn in my life, because those are the ones who are going to challenge me and remind me that I cannot get too comfortable with my status and my situation, because I'm not growing if I stick to that artificial piece. That's what I mean by that. So I definitely want to say that because of that, because I am not afraid of that kind of adversity, then that makes me reliable and I can be counted on. Because no matter what, no matter the weather, no matter what thing is out there lurking, making people sick, you know that I will show up wherever I have to be. I am emotionally stable and not easily upset. Yes, and I wish that more people were like that. And I can say that very confidently because, again, if I had a camera following me and you guys were able to observe the types of things that happen to me that could be triggering, or maybe it's people trying to be triggering, it would be a show on its own. Like, I wouldn't need to have a producer actively be working with a creative team to produce this show. It's just a show on its own. I am original and come up with new ideas. That is definitely I agree strongly. Although in more recent times, I feel like I am not creating as much as I used to. And I feel like, at least on the channel, most of the things that I do around here, since this is me turning my journal into video form, I'm not really discussing new concepts. It's nothing truly absolutely original. And I feel like the further in time with travel, the tougher it will be to think up new concepts without having the interference of past motivation, past inspiration. And there's nothing wrong with that because, I mean, our ancestors have worked very hard so that those who come afterward, their descendants, can enjoy stuff that they didn't get to enjoy, I guess. So they're laying the groundwork, the foundation. We're just taking those ideas and just tweaking it. That's just all that life is, in my view. It's like, sure, my grandparents had something, then my parents picked it up from there, and then their descendants are trying to pick up stuff from there. Some stuff goes well, some stuff doesn't. But when it comes to building things and coming up with absolute new ideas, I feel like in my day, I don't invest as much time to thinking in that type of way. But just because I don't doesn't mean I'm not capable. I'm just not exercising that side of me quite as much. So, to be fair, I have been relying more on, say, inputs from my mother or observing what other people are up to or go on the internet and Pinterest my way through coming up with new outfit ideas, just to name an example. So, it's something that if I exercise it, definitely. But no, no big deal. No big deal. I can say that when I need to, if I'm working on a school assignment or a work project, I can definitely come up with new ideas. I am outgoing and sociable. Strongly disagree. I do not like to really go out much. And when it comes to sociable, I'm not saying that you'll come talk to me and you'll have the worst experience of your life. It's just that if you have high expectations of your encounter with me, that is going to disappoint you because there are just times in which I cannot stand people. I need to breathe. I need to take a break. But maybe that's the fatigue from work intruding into my life. But maybe if I had a different career, one in which I have absolute control over it, my personality may change because I will not need to feel like I'm working. It will not feel like I'm pushing my introverted self into forcing out a personality that doesn't correspond to me, and therefore I am left unhappy, if that makes sense. So, but you guys know it. I definitely, if I had a crown, I would wear it. I am antisocial. And everyone ever who hears that is shooketh. And I say, well, in my book, my definition of antisocial is definitely you avoid people like the plague. And that's something that I just do. I walk in public, I don't look at people's faces. Everybody always sees me, but I never see you unless you're very obviously in front of my face, blocking my path. Then sure, I cannot avoid but see you. But I'm just not actively going out looking for people. But here on the channel, I find that I like to interact with folks here because everything goes at my pace. I'm in control. Again, it's like I am in full control of my fate when it comes to this. And even the occasional person who shows up and tries to be challenging, very easy diffusable, if that's a word. But I mean, when it comes to socializing, that is something that you have to leave up to me and let me have absolute control over it. But there's people who really try to force a friendship on me, and I cannot stand that. That doesn't work for me. It's either we click on the first time, or we build up to something, taking small steps, or we just ain't tight and it ain't gonna happen. So I understand why some people would feel drawn to my personality, and I'm sorry if you're disappointed that I'm not serving the ideal image of you that you have, or of me that you have. But, like, sorry, I just don't roll that way, you know? And I really find it refreshing to hear some people, especially here in the comments, who tell me that you don't find me antisocial, or like you don't find me to be a rude, mean person, anything like that. And sometimes I feel like you just really need to meet me in person to understand better. But when I think about it critically, no, it's not that I'm just actively mean. Like, if you were hurt on the sidewalk, I wouldn't come to your aid. Absolutely, I would help you out best as I can. But I'm just saying that people like to think that I like to say, for example, pre the current era that we're living, that I like to go out and dance. No, I do not like to dance because I don't have style in me. Stop trying to create a stereotype on me just because I'm young and full of energy that somehow I'm a good fucking dancer. No, it has nothing to do with me. Yes, I like the arts, I like music, but just because I can compose music or practice music doesn't mean that I'm good at body movement that's choreographed. No. So that, because people draw those automatic conclusions and they tend to get me wrong a lot, that is what has fueled my mindset of being antisocial. I can be cold and uncaring. Unfortunately, that is an agree a little, only because for the longest time, because I was brought up in an environment where I don't want to say I was emotionally isolated. I was just brought up to be really, really, really tough skinned, because there was a lot of adversity when I was conceived and a little after. So I can remember that stress mentally and physically. And because I had episodes in which, let's say that I wanted some kind of chocolate ice cream, and I was crying and sobbing and screaming about it, stomping my feet about it, I was left unattended and I was left to cry, and my feelings were disregarded. I grew to learn to accept that as being normal. You will be unattended at times. There are people out there who would not give a damn about your feelings. And I had episodes, especially in my adolescence, and this broke me for the longest time, probably for like 2 years, where there was someone I was incredibly interested in, but they kept pushing me away, rejecting me, not being loving, kind, just affectionate wherever it was suitable. That's what I learned. I learned, you know what? I have to be that way. I'm getting rejected. That's how people are. I'm getting rejected by the people who I feel comfortable being close to and close with, but these people happen to be people who push me away. This happened at the worst possible time in my life, during the time when I was impressionable and my mental development was taking place. So, unfortunately, I'm one of those people who I am a sponge when it comes to information. About the first round of info that you supply me with. Say, when I start at my job, I still remember absolutely everything from day one. I remember everything about my orientation. And then the landscape has evolved in retail, and you all know that absolutely everywhere that you shop at now, you can do stuff like online delivery, online ordering. So that is something that had to be implemented into work. That has come with its set of challenges, stresses, frustrations, etc. But when that chapter arrived in our careers, I still remember everything from launch day. And we have had to implement so many changes, like changes to the rules on how you handle something, how you pack something, how you label something. And those changes are happening oftentimes too fast, but also it doesn't get informed as fast as you need for that info to be spread to you. And your schedule sometimes doesn't help because maybe today they just launched something and I happen to be off. I'm going to miss out on it. But then tomorrow, the role that I am assigned to has nothing to do with that kind of project until the weekend. I am not going to be involved in that. So at that point, it's up to management to ensure that everybody is keeping up with that, because only management would know what kind of changes are taking place. But realistically, it's difficult to manage a lot of people. I understand, but I cannot possibly come up to you and tell you, Miss Manager, can you please make sure that I get around to this course that was released, when I don't know that such a course has been released. And that is a problem that I've been having time again, again, and again. And it leaves me fatigued because the responsibility is being endorsed to me. I get it. I need to take my worker education into my own hands. I am not refusing to learn, but my issue is you don't give me the tools. So because of that, that shows my cold and uncaring aspect, when I remember that you're really alone in this world. It's just you fending for yourself, unless you happen to find like a really good partner, or you have really good parents who, like, they have you under this protective cape and nobody messes with you. But if you have been emotionally isolated like that and pushed away, that's all that you know, and that's what sticks to you. And then you end up growing up used to being that way. You see the benefit of being that way. And then when it affects you in other things in your life, it's difficult for you to see what people are telling you. And that's why I like to say that I tend to be really tone deaf to certain issues. And that's why I come up with those random videos about, what do you guys think about this? Am I being an asshole? Or, you know, so unfortunately, that is very true. I can be cold and uncaring. So for the rating, because deep down I'm not a monster, I'm going to say agree a little, but it's definitely on the yes, I can be department. I keep things neat and tidy. Disagree a little, but if I see something that's getting out of control, I don't let it get absolutely out of control. It's not like you're going to see mud and dirt and gunk and gooey stuff everywhere, or say clothes that just, I tend to, anything that I have worn one time but it's not ready for the laundry, I tend to like toss it on the floor, fold it, stick it to the side, and be like, this is what I need to wear to work out, to go to work, etc. So, so yeah, but I don't necessarily freak out about neatness like I used to. I am relaxed and handle stress well. Oh my goodness, yes. Even if sometimes, again, a lot of it builds up and you're not invincible. You can fail at this from time to time, but in the grand scheme of things, I tend to do really well with stress. And this might sound weird, but because I handle my stress very well and some folks around me don't, their stress can be contagious sometimes. Like, stuff that normally doesn't stress me out, I find it stressing me out. But then I remember it's not actually originally my problem. I inherited this problem from like someone else in the house or a friend or something. And that's when I say, okay, I need to like activate my barrier and remember that the issue is not actually affecting me. So if I don't keep my cool and the person being affected by this has already lost their mind, we have a problem. So before it turns into that, then, just don't let stress consume you. I used to be that person. I used to be really stressed, but ever since I can manage my stress very well, I am much happier. And I make better decisions too. I have few artistic interests. Strongly disagree. I prefer to have others take charge. Strongly disagree, but I guess I must say disagree a little. Only because, as much as I'm confident about my capabilities, there is stuff that I'm truly clueless about. And I like to reach out to people and be like, hey, I know nothing about this. I'm absolutely ignorant. This has never happened before. I'm not sure what course of action to take. I would appreciate it if we could hold hands with this, or like tag team, because I really would not like to handle this on my own. But generally, I feel like I would rather take charge of things. And unfortunately, I know people who, like I explained in my most recent video, that I'm going to do the job because only I can do it to the best standards, and my standards are the best standards. If I don't do it, then it's not going to get done to the best standards, you know? So, because of that, I don't like to let others take charge, but because I know that I will be a failure with some things, like I'm not good at everything, then it's best for others to take charge. And also, when you let others take charge, you help them develop. So that is something that I had to work on toward the end of my adolescence, because I used to be very confident. I mean, I was a freaking overachiever, and just I had on paper, I looked great. I was a great performer. I could make anything happen. And then that just made me be too full of myself. And I had to remember that just because I have talents, it doesn't mean I'm going to be the best at everything. And even if I find myself in situations where I tend to perform more favorably than others, others have the stuff that they're really good at that I definitely will not be so good at. And one of the things that has helped me discover that about myself better is that on occasion I try to just get a little distracted and I borrow my brother's gaming consoles. And I have an absolute learning deficiency, learning. Oh, like I'm thinking about my most recent experience, and now I wonder how was I so good at video games? But with more newer consoles, you have this experience that has been installed into these games, that one of the thoughts that I have constantly is there's no way I will have time to explore everything that this thing has to offer. How does anybody, any adult, possibly have time for a fucking video game? What is your problem? You are crazy. There's so much more important things and better things to do with your time than this. But then I think about it as my issue is it's been about 10 years since I actively participated in video games. So I have missed out on that bit of timeline. And that bit of timeline is where a lot of changes have taken place. A lot of evolution has taken place and advancements. And now I am integrating myself into something that I was a level 2 at, and I skipped levels 3 and 4, and now I'm trying to somehow conquer level 5 without experiencing the other stuff. It just really blows my mind that I used to think that way before. Like, oh, I can skip through all of these levels because I'm freaking adaptable. But no amount of you being good at mostly everything in other areas is going to make you good at anything else. So it doesn't help that I really hate being in front of a TV anyway. And I cannot even tell you, prior to today and yesterday, and maybe the day before for around half an hour, I cannot even tell you when was the last time I watched a video. Like watched it, not listen to it, but actively like watch it and not as ambient filler noise type of deal. And then I said to myself, how the heck did I used to make videos so much? How did I used to stream so much? And how do people have time to come up with those videos that are really good? And I'm not talking about the big channels, you know, they have a team, they have a production, they pay others to help them. But I'm talking about individuals who start with nothing. And then when I think about it, I'm like, well, their opportunities are a little different from mine. Maybe if I had, say, in this household, no one is interested in the same stuff that I am interested in. No one is interested in politics, journalism, music, art, stuff like that. So nobody is socially feeding me. And then the people who can possibly socially feed me are really far away, or I don't fucking know them. Like, I don't know you in person. I know you from the internet. Or then those other people who I know in person who are interested in those things, they have a crazy ass schedule and we cannot align for anything to happen. It's not like I can say to, say, a coworker, hey, tomorrow after work, let's do this and that. No, I have to close and then I'm the opener. You know, so it's really sad that the way that we live presently divides us so much. So that is in part why I feel like it's time that I allowed others to take charge, because I only have control over my own fate. And I used to think that everyone was just the same. Like when you're in school, you know that your classmates have a very similar schedule to yours, unless they are really invested in extracurriculars. But you know that from 7 until 3 or 4, they're going to be occupied. But after that, you know what they're doing. They know, you know their schedules. But when you're an adult, everyone's path is just too different. I am respectful and treat others with respect. Agree strongly. I am persistent and work until the last task is finished. It depends. So I'm gonna have to say agree a little, because there are some projects that I have to divide and conquer. I feel secure and comfortable with myself. Agree heavily, strongly. But at the same time, I have discovered that again, I have been overconfident in some things, and that makes me look like I'm prideful. But you gotta understand that for the longest time, I didn't trust myself. And once you discover that you have what it takes and you see your life changing and going in a better direction, that just makes you feel proud of yourself. So it's okay to feel that kind of pride. But just because I feel prideful about my accomplishments doesn't mean that I go around actively being assholes to other people. Like, I tend to be someone who I'm really low about my achievements. And sometimes people discover that I obtained something and they're like, well, why didn't you say anything? And I'm like, I like to celebrate independently by myself, just intimately. But when the time is right, that's when my talents will help me shine, pretty much. But I don't go around telling people I can play the piano. It's like, no, if the opportunity presents itself, then you will know that I can play the piano. But I'm not going to try to build you up to that excitement, if that makes sense. I am complex and a deep thinker. Agree strongly, because and there's people in the channel who have tried to give me hate. It's probably the trolls, who just happen to find a video and they watch for 30 seconds just to leave a mean comment and then carry on with their lives. But that's really the whole point of this channel. Sometimes I say to you guys, hey, I had this thought. I don't know if this is something that has been discussed before or people think about it too much, but it occurred to me. Nothing inspired it, but what do you think? And then some guys tell me, hey, you're thinking about this way too much. You're taking this too seriously. And I'm like, you don't understand. This is an exercise for me. This is in no way affecting my life. It's just me sharing a thought, an occurrence. What do you have to say? If you have nothing to say, goodbye. Dismiss yourself. But there's people who actively try to ruin what I establish here, which is that discussion environment. And I guess it's just them sad souls who just have nowhere to go and they're looking for attention. I don't know. I just cannot imagine a life in which I feel that way. But oh well. I am less active than other people. If you mean physically exercising, getting stuff done, you guys know that's not true. So that is definitely a strongly disagree. I tend to find fault with others. Agree a little. I can be somewhat careless. Being carefree is not the same as careless. And I definitely can say that everything that I do, every step that I take, every decision I make, it definitely carries a lot of thought behind it. So it's definitely a strongly disagree. I care about what I'm getting ready to do too much. So I guess it can make me an overthinker sometimes. I am temperamental and get emotional easily. Strongly disagree. I have little creativity. Strongly disagree, although, as I said earlier, it's something that I could definitely exercise. And it appears that I am at the end. So let's see what happens. My results. I tend to gravitate toward conscientiousness, one day Zen. But I seem to be 100% at openness to experience. And then when it comes to extraversion, that is a little bit less than conscientiousness. When it comes to negative, I am only around, that says around 25-ish%. It's like a pentagraph type of thing. So I'm having to interpret it. And then agreeableness, apparently 50% you will agree or 50% you will disagree, which is true as hell because I have learned that from my experience here in the channel, but also my experience dealing with people who have a little bit more experience in life, say in a career department, or if you happen to be older than me. Because some folks who I've engaged in discussions with who are older than me, I find that when they find themselves cornered, that's when they whip out their "I'm older than you" card. I'm your elder, so therefore I know more than you. And to me, that just tells me you're fucking at a loss and you refuse to just say, hey, I never considered your point before. I appreciate what you have to say, however, I cannot relate. Or I don't find that valuable. That is much better, much more beautiful than just trying to dismiss me altogether or even mock me and laugh at me. I have had people in my personal life just, I tell them something and I'm pouring my heart out on the matter and they just fucking disrespect me and laugh at me. And I'm like, you're belittling me. What you're doing is hurting my feelings, but it's hurting my feelings only because of the position that you fill in my life. But if you were a randomer and etc. person who I only encounter for like 10 minutes in my day, I couldn't care. But because it is you and you are actually present in my life for prolonged periods of time, yes, I do have to care. But also, alternatively, when you're in a career, it's always the more experienced person or the person who's in a position of power over you who, again, you start challenging them, you start cornering them, and that's when they say, well, I'm the one who has the management position and you don't. Or I'm the one who has been in this company for 15 years and you haven't. So when someone says that to you, it's because, in my personal experience, you definitely are challenging them. you have them cornered, and they just would rather fall flat on their ass and tear it open even further, as opposed to accepting, hey, you're being challenging. That is awesome. I see your point. However, my experience tells me that certain things are not applicable. Anything like that. You can literally take the discussion in any other way. But those people, tend to be the prideful ones who try to make me feel like I'm the one who is too full of herself. And that's when I say, no, you're trying to emotionally abuse me, emotionally be manipulative. And because I am not letting you, like perhaps you have been able to control other people in your life, then you're just upset at me because you are not conquering me. No, no, what kind of crazy person are you? But anyways, I guess it's time for me to recur to the comments. And yeah, let me make sure that I went over all of my results. Yeah, so like 20-ish% negative, 65-ish% extraversion, which it's strange. And then 100% openness to experience. And again, it would have been terrible if I scored low on that, considering how open-minded I believe myself to be. And when it comes to agreeing, you will either 50% agree or 50% disagree. And let's see. How I compare to the national average, it seems to be like 75% of people are agreeable, and only around 60% of people tend to be open to experience, and around 50% tend to be on the extroversion side. And then what's that line? Around 45-ish% tend to be negative. And when it comes to conscientiousness, I scored about average. Oh, it had numbers in here. So openness to experience, I'm 100%. Agreeableness, 54%. Conscientiousness, 67%. Negative emotionality, I am 8 out of 100. So that means I am not negative, like a lot of people try to accuse me. And I think we need to teach people. I, as a person who used to want to be a teacher, I would not know what kind of technique to use, but we need to come up with ways to teach people to be able to differentiate between you being negative and you being a realist, because you know how to take data and make a comparison, and therefore you can anticipate certain outcomes. Because there's people, and this is the cold, uncaring side of me showing. There are people who make terrible decisions, and I warn them that what they're getting ready to try is terrible. They still would rather go through the experience and then come back to you and say, oh my god, it went completely horrible. And then you can be an asshole and be like, I fucking told you I could have prevented it, but you didn't let me. Or you could be like, um you know, I guess sorry, but you fucking lack common sense. And I have said that to people before. Like, I cannot feel any sympathy, empathy, compassion for you because you are a fuck up and you just didn't listen. So boom, suffer. but you know, I have been trying my best to let that side of me go. But the only reason I think that way is because I'm thinking, if it were my mother, I wouldn't want anyone to treat her like that. Or if it were me, I wouldn't like anyone to treat me like that. But I worked so hard to be able to think, to make good decisions, to not find myself in that kind of situation. And I have never found myself in that kind of situation. But that doesn't mean I'm like, what is it? The word slipped me. But immune to that happening to me. But like, I'm telling you, as hard as I work, as much as I think, As much as I ask people the right questions, why would I allow myself to like be on such a decline, you know? But anyways, let's read the description of my score of 100 out of 100. High openness to experience. You have probably tried on several personal styles and hobbies during your life, and your curious brain is actively seeking new things to explore. Your identity may be flexible and open to change, but you are likely to find success in careers that value that. The arts, for instance. Don't trap yourself in a theater kid box, though. People with high openness also do well in careers that involve investigation and discovery. You guys know that I have mentioned before that I wanted to be, I don't want to say I wanted to be, but I had considered a career in law, like being a judge, being a detective, investigator, examiner type deal. And it's because of that, because there's some stuff that I'm just eagle-eyed for. Don't let my glasses fool me. Maybe what I physically cannot see, my mind can see. Strange. They might become scientists, lawyers, or investigative journalists. The same thing I just said. Basically, weaponizing their intellectual curiosity and willingness to try new things and explore new ideas. Beware, though, that dangerous drugs are among the things you're more likely to be willing to try. Substance use disorders are a serious risk. This is a risk being warned to someone who has never touched any of those things. I've never smoked. I've never tried any drugs besides the medicinal kinds prescribed to doctors when I was a little girl. I've never tried antidepressants. I've never tried birth control. I haven't tried anything. Maybe that's why I'm normal and you guys are the crazy ones. But I'm not saying that all of you guys present in the stream have done stuff. But if you have, I mean, you're here. You're a step in the right direction, I guess. But anyway, let's catch up with the comments because I know there's plenty. Art student says, interesting. I'm glad you find it interesting. Jack says, hello. I say hello. That top looks good on you, or is it a bathing suit? Nah, this is one of those workout tops. But thanks, gray seems to be a color that goes well on me. My top favorite colors are navy, black, dark gray, dark green, in that order. Humanoid says, hello, Urbody. Good day to you. I like animals better than people myself, you know? I used to be that person when I was in high school. I used to really, really look forward to coming home to my cat at the time. And when you see the world the way that I see it, which I have been, there's been very few changes to my personality throughout the years. I think the biggest change has been that I'm not as shy, and my self-esteem has vastly improved, because I used to just have absolutely zero appreciation for anything that I was physically, but mentally, at least I was always confident. And I think that's what helped me survive school, if I were to put it in dramatic terms. My confidence in that department has never really been rivaled until maybe a few instances in the channel, and one particular person at work who unfortunately is no longer there. But this person will forever hold a special place in my heart, in my book, no matter where she goes. And honestly, she helped transform me. If I'm confident, like if you were to look at videos of me from when I started in 2016 and how I started changing and being more like, I don't even have as much of an inside voice as I used to. Like I used to be very timid and quiet, and it's not even that I was insecure about what I was sharing. It's just I wasn't used to having an audience that cared about what I had to say or that found it interesting, because I was not that popular person getting attention. And what's strange is that, say, when I went to the bank for the first time in my life to like open an account, when I got my driver's license, when I started my first job and everything, those people always had something nice to say to me. The lady at the bank said that one day I'll be famous. And I said, I hope I'm not. I don't like that. I think that's demonic stuff. That's not for me. But she also said, I've heard 3 people in my life tell me this, which I don't know where you get that from, but all right. They have told me that I should be a comedian. And I honestly do not think I'm funny. I just think that my mannerisms and my personality and maybe the way I can turn something maybe that you find complicated and simplify it. Maybe I have a funny, cool way of making it happen. I find it that humor helps me retain and learn stuff better. So why not attempt humor on you to aid you at grasping a concept? But I cannot imagine a life in which I'm standing on a stage entertaining a multitude. No, like my tone of voice alone does not do me any favors. So, how could I possibly be relied on to put on a show? But I am confident in maybe presenting a case. I don't want to say a speech. I don't want to say I would be a good preacher. But if I have to present something and give you the evidence and the pros and the the counters and the cons and everything, counter arguments, I can definitely do that. But when it comes to like actually presenting myself, um, maybe do a political speech, I would definitely like to take some kind of a course on like an oratory course just to help me at expressing myself better, clearly, not having brain freezes like I occasionally do. Like, oh my God, is this a stress or am I really that limited in my vocabulary? Just learn how to calm my mind to express myself in a way where I don't stutter or stumble so much on my words and control my excitement about what I'm doing. Because sometimes I've noticed that even when I make videos, I'm so excited about what I'm saying that I'm just being a fast speaker, but I feel like I'm not making any sense. And that is why sometimes I like to upload edited videos instead. And if you see a lot of cuts, it's because I'm doing that thing where I take pauses or I freaking trip over my own words and I just mispronounce things left and right. And then that's what makes me aware that I need to be a little more social, because I can go days without really holding a verbal kind of discussion with someone. Most of my interactions are done via text. And if you go a while without speaking, yeah, you will trip when you speak. It feels like it's like exercising. If you don't do it for a while, you're going to lose your muscles and your endurance and everything. So don't fall victim to that trap, because I know I fucking have. Open the gyms safely. But yeah, that at least I was able to open my mind up to admit that I don't sound as collected as I like to think. And sometimes, if I'm in a stressful situation, such as I'm being confronted about something and I'm being accused of something that isn't true, my emotions may get a little out of control, because that's when I see the worst in people. Like recently, I had a situation at home, and additionally, I was getting sick And that was affecting my ability to be at places at certain times. And I was just not showing up, but I was not communicating to the people who needed to know that I was not showing up until the last minute. And it's because until that very last minute, that's when I decided, you know what, it's best if I stay home so I can deal with this, as opposed to being in this place and being a mental zombie and not performing my best like I'm used to. Well, I got confronted and I was told that I am not very well at, I don't do well at committing myself to things and projects and say supporting others and whatnot. And I'm like, do you not understand all the things that I'm trying to be in my life? I'm trying to be a good girlfriend. I'm trying to be a good daughter to my mother who is experiencing health things. I'm also trying to take care of myself because if you haven't noticed, there is a very life threatening thing going out there changing people's lives. It was starting to change my life. And you have the nerve to tell me that I am not invested? Fuck you! I can tell you many ways that you're failing everybody. So that is what helped me realize that if you look for me, if you're looking for that terrible, terrible emotion from me, you will find it. But to trigger me, you have to be unfair. And that has happened to me 3 times in my life. The first time that I discovered that I was this internal ticking bomb potential monster was when I told you guys the Kansas story. It's in a video if you haven't seen it, if you're new to the channel and you haven't gotten to it yet. But there was this person who was calling my mother a liar. And I was there during the event that my mother was being confronted about doing something impertinent, that it wasn't even that in reality. This is just in that person's fucked up brain. That's how they see it. And basically she was just bullying my mother in front of my face. And I was like, no. Like, no, that's not what happened. That is not true. Like, mom, don't listen to her. She's crazy. This is a insane person. And that was the first time I lost my shit in front of someone. And again, maybe that's the law inclined side of me that was coming up. Like, you're being unfair, you're committing an injustice, you're doing it in my presence, I cannot tolerate it. And that's when I discovered that I can have an attitude if you look for it, but it has to be something extreme, like you're actively bullying someone in front of my face. And it happens to be also someone who I know and respect and care for and love. That's going to make it tenfold. So, but outside of that, I learned that if the injustice is being committed at me, I remain calm and explain things. And one of two things can happen. The person will understand and they will apologize and be like, just make sure that in the future, when this happens, coach me. When this happens, we would prefer that you let us know so that we can make plans in your behalf to cover for you, whatever. That is what a good person would do. Or you will continue to try to degrade me, debase me, and bully me, and all those things, and pretty much keep poking the tiger. And that's not helping the cause. It's not helping me. It's not helping you. It's not cultivating an atmosphere of growth and learning. And I don't do well in an environment like that. So those have been the only times that I have experienced that. And then the third situation is kind of cloudy in my brain. I would need to revisit my journal. But those two are the ones that stood out the most anyway. But yeah, those are my experiences with things that fueled that cold and uncaring side of me. These people could have shown care and all those things to me, but I didn't receive it. So I feel like I tend to be more of a giver of those traits than a receiver. But fortunately, in more recent times, I have been more on the receiving end than the giving. And until I started receiving genuine support in those departments, it didn't, I didn't realize just how needy I was for that stuff. So, anyway, I'm just glad for everybody who has been there contributing positively. Um, Not sure if you're a type A or type B personality, maybe a bit of both. Yeah, come to think of it, that is what someone brought up too in the comments, but I'm not sure it was the exact same thing. I would have to check. But apparently, this other, it's like a course that it takes every single trait and it really digs into it, as opposed to taking like this test, 5 different traits and then averaging it. That was the big difference. It's my house acres. Love your accent. Thanks. Garuda says hello. Hello. Please tell me I am not late. When I noticed that comment being posted, you were late to me finishing the survey or finishing the quiz. So you might need to backtrack to hear the answers dash explanations that I would give as to why I was answering in the manner that I was. But you know that these streams never like limit themselves to the topic. It always ends up going all kinds of places. Sounds like fake numbers. Never took the survey. Fake numbers. Sounds like me. Yep, sounds like me. Think about it. The police lets out a German Shepherd on humans. I have never, ever, holy crap, I have never given thought to canine police officers. Like, I've only associated them as, like, you take your little bloodhound to try to find the body. But dogs used as attackers, I've never thought about that. I've never thought about dogs being used actively to, like, pursue and attack humans. Why haven't I? I think it's because my connection with dogs has been very limited. The last time I had a dog in my life, it was back in 2005. So it's been 15 years. But that's crazy. I don't know why, but that's like, you can tell that my brain is now like, like I have so many thoughts now. So yeah, I've never thought about that. The use of like animals against people. We need to have a future discussion on that because there's a lot that can be uncovered there. Sounds like a funky situation. Yes. I noticed my marriage proposal is still open. Wait, I don't want to get beat up if you have a man. I was just being sassy. She has one. Yeah, I have one. My trigger has gotten a little itchier lately. You know what? Just like someone shared with me yesterday, just a stream of concerns, I guess. This has been coming up a lot on like news outlets, more like Twitter. That's where I hang out the most. But this whole situation that the entire planet has been experiencing, I hope that you know what I'm talking about, because YouTube just doesn't like it when you say the truth in here, call things the way they are. But a lot of people are finding themselves stressed. I mean, you cannot blame them. There's people who are probably not going to have their homes anymore, and people who are very financially unstable. Like, you might have been struggling before the thing hit, but this has aggravated your situation. Now, in some cases, for some people, this has helped, or it has not aggravated their status in any way. It has remained neutral. That's me. I have remained neutral. I have not really benefited much from this, but I cannot say that I have suffered from this. Like, say, I have had late payments to my bills, or my health has been on the line. Yes, I did get sick here and there, but it was not like, oh, wow, I need medical intervention, because you guys know that I would never consider that as an option. But I feel so discouraged, frustrated sometimes that life was already tough for some of us before something that is completely out of our control happened, and that now it's making it worse. Now we are more tired because for some of us, our job, our demand just tripled, and nobody had a plan for that in place. This helped showcase some weaknesses in our infrastructure. Let it be the medical one, retail, shit, even national security. Because, I mean, do we have enough police to be able to contain the entire country if we all collectively decided, hey, to hell with this, you know? At that point, it wouldn't be the police, it would be a military intervention. But this just helped to show that because there are so many of us, like so many humans out there, there's just not enough human resources to tend to everybody when emergencies of this nature take place. And people now, if you didn't know that before, or if you didn't suspect that before, or if you're not like me, if you never tried to think about that before, like say, oh my God, why is it that we tend to have better responses to certain disasters better than others? And sometimes you find the answer, other times you don't. Sometimes you're too young to remember something to care to go back and look at it or anything like that. But me personally, I have been revisiting, say, hurricanes that I remember living through. And I'm like, hey, what was it like? Let me look at the news. How was this being announced? What were people doing to prepare? Why was it that my mother was ordering certain services and stuff like that? How much did it cost at the time? How much does it cost now? Things like that. But if you're not emotionally fit to cope with stress, naturally recurring stress, how do you expect for people to perform when you have a stress that is actively induced into you that aggravates as time goes by? And if you have the misfortune of living in a place where politics are not in your side, that makes it even tougher. So there's people out there who are realizing the importance of being involved in finding out what kinds of decisions are being made that affect you. Like, not everybody is, for me personally, when it comes to politics, the one issue that I care about the most has to be this country giving insurance to everybody, health insurance to everybody. There is no reason why this country cannot make it happen. But the way that we are being persuaded into thinking that, yeah, there's resources for certain things, but there's not resources for others. Like, come on. We all know that this place is not designed to be suitable for everybody, because it's always the people who are marginalized who suffer the most. And this place was just designed and founded on those kinds of values. Now people are finally accepting that that is still happening, but it's that acceptance is happening on a broader scale. And now the people who we're holding accountable or trying to hold accountable are starting to freak the fuck out. And then the folks who do not agree with those things is clearly people who do not suffer from those things. It is hard for you to feel empathetic and truly immersed in the issues of others when you do not relate to it. Whereas, say, if you are a disabled person and you hear someone talking about disability and how it makes their lives tougher unfairly, of course, that disabled person will totally understand where this person is coming from. You have to deal with the support, with the getting the support, talking to the people you need to talk to make sure that those things happen. You have an unfair disadvantage at getting hired, and pretty much poverty is forced on you. And in the same manner that, say, if you're someone who is a single mother, sure, you would like to pursue your education, but how can you possibly split yourself into, you need to be a responsible regular adult, plus you have to tend to this human being who is absolutely dependent on you, but you also need to work on yourself to improve your likelihood of being a better candidate to be considered for the stuff that's best out there to help you, which is you need to build better finances. But now you have pretty much dug yourself further into poverty because your resources were not strong when this happened to you, and now you don't have the father support, and you are solely responsible now for everything happening. And that is also something that people are trying to change, and I feel like they're not trying to change it correctly, because people are demanding that, say, for some reason, pay women more just because women. But at the same time, you want to be paid more, but when we hire you to be full time, you got physical issues, you gotta work a special schedule, you cannot perform to the capacity that is needed of you, and then you're complaining that the job is treating you inhumanely for some reason, and you are tired, and you're just this mess, and that's why you do not look attractive as a potential candidate. And it's not nice. It's, nobody should be judging you like that, but also understand that you're unevening the field for those of us, the rest of us, who's actually fit for this. Why should we give you, the single mother with all the challenges, more value than someone like, say, me, where I have been trying to make decisions that do not put me in a disadvantage position? I have to make sacrifices as well, just like you do. You have to sacrifice your sleep. I have to sacrifice my free time. Like, I would like to definitely rest more, but I cannot do that because I have to keep building my stuff, because I know that me working the way that I'm working is not sustainable. And my opportunities are limited since I actively am avoiding going to school. And that's another sacrifice I have to make. I want to go to school, but I don't want to give myself the stress of I don't have a financial plan to make this work when the things that I'm interested in, people don't hire in those industries. So I'm not going to force myself through school to hopefully make myself be valuable as a candidate in an industry that just doesn't have room for me anyway, and then try to fix my life, but my bill isn't going to be postponed. You know, that is a sacrifice I'm making. Why do we have to value you more than me? So, how could we possibly come up with a solution that balances everybody's individual cases, needs, and circumstances? And I know that that's what politics are about, but sometimes what concerns me is that the voices that speak loudest are starting to really drift away from the values that seem to make things work more harmoniously. Like, we all are too familiar with how a lot of women would opt for the man to be taken out of the familial picture altogether. And I strongly disagree with that. So the people who advocate for that do not represent me, because I dream of having a home where all of those responsibilities are divided. Like, you have your role as the man, I have my role as the woman. We all focus on that, and we don't try to call that sexist for some reason. So when you have all of those things, our politics were broken, our finances were broken, our infrastructures were broken, our homes were broken, our jobs are breaking us. How can you expect for people to feel good, for people to be their best, for people to be better? So I cannot help but look at myself as, wow, I'm grateful that I have, as at least as of right now, the decisions I have made I have been satisfied with, that they have not complicated my life. They have not helped me advance, like, wow, I'm on top of my game right now. Nothing like that. But at least I have nothing to complain about, except not having insurance. That's the one thing I will always be aggressive about. Oh, well, that's easy. Just be full time. You don't get it. Like, it's not about me refusing to work one extra day out of my week to have benefits. It's the long term consequences that that will have for me. That means I would have to give up the things on the side that I'm trying to build, and that I will also have to suffer physically, because that is just not something I can sustain. And that I'm strong enough to admit that I would not be able to handle a 40-hour week, week after week after week after week. So that is a sacrifice I'm making. Why is it that other people's circumstances have more value over mine? So I'm looking for the, let's say, political candidate, if there is such a thing, that could represent that perspective. And I feel like if you're able to carry that somehow, that is when people are going to turn around and have a better faith in politics. Like, sure, I feel like I'm being considered and represented too, as opposed to some people get a little bit of benefit. Other people, their lives don't change because what the fuck, you're already at the top of your game, you're untouchable. But these people, let's keep marginalizing them, like, think this through. How will your decision affect the disadvantaged people, physically disadvantaged, mentally disadvantaged, and financially disadvantaged? Think about all of that and do not give up on finding that balance, because I feel like when we make a good decision towards something, something else gets neglected. Don't be like that. Don't have a tunnel vision with issues. Don't let something get cold. And again, as someone who's not experienced in politics or educated in politics, there's no way that I can think up a solution, but I can at least criticize what kind of strategy is being implemented that I'm observing and what flaws I detect in it. And just stop making decisions that only favor one group of people, but forget about the rest. And I'm sure that when changes are being brought about, you have the best of intentions, but you're hurting people still. And sometimes you don't even acknowledge that you're hurting people. And that's what I would like to see change. Yep, terrifying. I love dogs, but when one is police, nah. I would imagine that those dogs have to be the most impressive dogs you'll ever encounter. Like, their level of training is different, their physique is different, because shoot, I'm sure that they have like the special diets, the regimen that they have to follow. And I would like to learn more about dogs. I've seen maybe one or two videos about, like those special dogs that just from the moment they're born and how they're taken to like their canine academy or something. But it was like 2 minutes long. It was just like the officer, uh, when they say, hey, this is going to be your canine partner. And, it was very vague. It didn't really go into the details or the psychology of it, the breakdown of it. That's what I would like to see. But yeah, times like these, if your attitude is not the best, I don't blame you. Just do not fall victim to staying with that mentality for too long. For me, I can say that I have actively had 4 days of absolute displeasure, absolute frustration, anger, and depression out of the year. Let's start this from January 1st, 2020. The very first time was when I got sick and I could barely breathe. I thought I was gonna die that night. I may or may not have told you guys about it, but this was like back in January or February. Anyway, and then the second time would have to be when my mom's situation happened. Then the other time was when a situation that I just described, where I was considered inconsiderate, happened. And then another one was the financial strike that took place 2 weeks ago. But at the end of the day, I am someone who walks with faith. So I will continue to be here, as you guys can see. The only thing that changes is I may be a little more tired than usual. But, challenges. That's life for you. Um, More and more, the Bible is sounding like tomorrow's newspaper. Oh my God, yes! Like, I have been going back to a little bit of the scriptures with help. I asked mom, hey, mom, do you remember reading about something like, tell me about chapters that deal with famine or something? And she goes, oh yeah, check this out, check that out. And mom, what about the things that deal with like uh, war and death and stuff? And she goes, oh, there's plenty of that, but based on what your interests are from our conversations, look for this and this and that. And then I said, mom, tell me about hidden talents. Like, how is it that I never, back in 2014, I had never drawn a day in my life, but then one day I woke up and it's like, without even taking an art class or training or anything, I was able to draw a poster near perfectly. How? How? Where does that come from? And she says, well, in the Bible, there's something about how you can pretty much go back to your lineage. And if someone in our family was an artist, which we have plenty, you probably didn't know, then that information may have traveled in the blood and you happen to have awakened your artistic gene. What? It makes sense, but because it's not something that you can see, like, yeah, this is the vein that's carrying my art skill. Let me fire it up some more. You can't do that. But it made a lot of sense because I always wonder, how is it that I have a sense of direction on things that I have never done before, I've never discussed before, never thought about before. And medicine, for example, how is it that I seem to do so well with learning about medicine and medical terms and everything? Where did that come from? I'm not a doctor. I've never taken a class for that. And my mom goes, well, just remember that my grandfather was a healer and we have multiple doctors in the family. Where? And then she says, well, unfortunately, since you were not able to get acquainted with your family, then you couldn't meet them or hang out with them. And I'm like, well, can we fly to the state where everybody is congregated at so that we can make this happen? And then she's like, well, there's people up north, there's people in the west, there's people down south. Everyone is dispersed. And that is what helped me understand the importance of family, but a family that is functional. Because if I think back and I see my life surrounded by people who are similar to me and have similar values to me, and we are functional, then that could have served as my source of support for me to not feel so lost. Like when I finished high school, I had interest in nothing. I knew I wasn't going to school, but when it came to a job, I decided to settle for like entry level something. And to this day, I'm still there. But it's not because of a lack of drive, it's just that it's taken me so long to uncover that information that is useful for me to make it. But going to a school is not going to serve me the way that I want to, because there are things that is something I have to manage independently. School can give me the direction and maybe connections, but again, it doesn't take into consideration stuff like my lifestyle. And I just cannot imagine a life in which I can juggle going to school, working, and then doing my life stuff. Like, being with my mother, supporting her, my boyfriend, and work. And me, I need attention. Like, I still gotta shower and eat and work out. and just be a living human who enjoys life here and there, take up a hobby or something. Why is everything a work of sacrifice? Why can you not have that fine balance? And going to school would upset that balance that I have worked so hard to achieve. And at this point, I really don't think that school has the answers for me. And I'm enjoying this quest better anyway, because it's not like I spent 13 years going to school anyway. Too bad that that time in school, some of it was wasted, because a lot of the info I learned in school is not very useful to me. It never taught me anything about having a business, didn't teach me about making proper connections and how to deal with work conflict. Just useful things. It only taught me to read, write, but it didn't even teach me to think. Because if school did its part in teaching you how to think, we wouldn't have such a major thinking deficit in this nation. But that's just my personal opinion. Like, don't take that too seriously. But the interactions I have with people are not the greatest. And I'm starved socially. Garuda says, I love you. Someone has to say it. I guess I love you too. Believe it or not, nobody in my life tells me that they love me. Like, actively tells me that they love me. Yeah, there's a friend, but like, my mom is not someone who like tells me that she loves me. My boyfriend definitely does not tell me he loves me. But this is weird. I don't know if this happens to you guys, but just because someone doesn't tell you that they love you, like with those words, it doesn't mean that you don't feel that they love you. Because when I think about it, not even I tell people that I love them. It's not something I'm used to doing. It's something I have wanted to do. But because the people I reside with, of course, are emotional zombies, that's not something they do. They still show me their love with their actions. And I'm grateful for that, but I'm not gonna lie, it would be nice to hear it, because sometimes when their actions are falling behind, like lacking, it's easy for you to forget that indeed you are loved. But I guess that is something that everyone can be better at. Just practice saying compliments, practice saying loving, nice, sweet, kind things. But why are we so bad at that? Why is that not something inherent? But we are very quick and vocal to tell someone, you're making me mad, you're messing things up, I'm so upset. Why are you lazy? Why have you not taken out the trash or something? We are very quick to voice the negative shit, right? So lately, I have been, if you want to call it dragging and roasting people, anyone who tries to say something negative to me, I like to tell them, when was the last time you did blank something nice to me? If you cannot answer that with it being within the span of 48 hours, shut the fuck up. So I have been really like, I don't know if you can call that like a gangster behavior, but I just got sick of being like stomped on and abused. And that is something that, if you remember earlier when I mentioned the person who was changing my life, who I will never forget, that is part of it. She helped me see that I was tolerating so much abuse that others had made me aware, but I refused to label it as abuse, because as someone who is mentally strong, it's very easy for you to come up with excuses to defend those people. And fortunately, I have never been someone who has suffered from physical abuse. And I feel like I would rather be experiencing that, because at least you know that if you had a bruise in your skin, you know it heals. But emotional bruises, how do you know those are healing? Of course, this is not me saying come over here and beat me up, not at all. I will sue you. But 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 yeah, like it's strange. You, unless you are made aware, even if you know and sense that you're being a victim, you're being mistreated, you don't acknowledge it, especially if you think very little of yourself. And that's part of the thing where earlier I was mentioning that my self esteem was really low and I had zero regard for myself. Like, someone had to sit my ass down and tell me, what are you doing? Why are you letting yourself be killed? And I'm like, it makes sense because yes, I do feel like I'm dead alive, but I still get stuff done. I'm functional. And that's when they said, well, being functional doesn't mean that it's right or that it's working for you. If you're suffering, then it's not working. And as common sense as that is, when you're on the receiving end of it, you're just blind to that shit. So we all need a mentor in our lives. And it doesn't matter how experienced and old and amazing you are, talented, overachiever, we all need a mentor. And at least I can say that while mine lasted, I took advantage of it. Hello, Jimmy. Both major US political parties need some serious reform, or just get rid of both and start over. Yes, I've said this before. Why do we feel like we have to be bipartisan? Who says that? Who established that? And we need to also accept the fact that some of the laws, some of the rules, some of the shit, let's even throw this into the mix. Why not? Religions and like constitutions, they were founded during a time when values were different. Why would you not want to tweak these documents to represent the contemporary state of affairs? But somehow we're trying to make some traditions work when they just are not belonging to our time. Don't be afraid to let go of some things that just don't work anymore. Now, when it comes to the family structure, I feel like that can remain the same, except for the instances where there's there are some cultures or something out there where women don't have a say, women don't have a right. And I think that that is wrong from the point of view of as an individual who does not get to pick what I am born as. Why do I have to unfairly suffer just because I drew the bad side of the lottery? Like, human beings as property or being controlled is something so heinous to me. And I just hate it. Manipulation and someone being under someone's control. I find that to be a true abomination because this is a person is like, it's like a clock. You have this timer and then someone is keeping you controlled, and that timer doesn't stop for you while you're experiencing this hump and the inconvenience. And it might take you so long to free yourself, but that timer never paused for you. So now you have so much to make up for. Does that make sense? It's like someone having you at their disposal. Who are you to dictate how someone's life should be? Make decisions on behalf of someone, especially once they are people capable of making their own decisions. And even if you don't feel that someone is capable of making their own decisions, you don't have a right to predetermine someone's, map out someone's life without letting them have a say over it, you know? So that would be the one thing that I would fight from the traditional family structure. I think that we made progress on certain areas of it, but we have been getting lost on other areas of it, like, say, encouraging more single parenthood and being like, oh, it's perfectly fine if, say, households only have one parent. No, nobody deserves to be brought up in an environment where you don't have absolute security. And I'm not saying that households who have two parents naturally don't have any problems and everything is flowers and dandelions. Nothing at all. But at least where one parent stops being able to supply you with things, you know for a fact that the other parent can help you. And even if they cannot supply whatever you need themselves, they will be able to find the resources to supply you with whatever you need. So I think that is going to be the biggest scar in my life, that I grew up without a father, even though the more critically I think about it, the more beneficial it was for me to grow up without my daddy. But there's stuff that I undoubtedly missed out on, and that resulted in certain flaws in my character. And believe me, I have paid dearly for some of it. So that's why I try to give myself kindness. I try to treat myself nicely when stuff doesn't go, when I don't meet my own expectations. And it's not necessarily I'm still blaming my father for that. It's more of a, I was born at a disadvantage. Just like if you're someone who is born with physical difficulties, for the rest of your life, you're going to have trouble manifesting yourself. Say you'll have to work extra hard to prove that you're someone worthy of being hired. Well, I have to work extra hard to prove to people that I'm not going to be a human being who cannot sustain a family, cannot control my life. I cannot manage my home well. I cannot balance or manage my finances well, or say I cannot be a good girlfriend or anything. Like, no, that does not have to be true. And I have worked so hard to make sure that that's not true, and I am very proud about what I have achieved. So, it unless you take time to reflect, you won't think that way. And that is super sad. I think we all should practice that more often. That it could have been so much worse for some of us, but it didn't go that way. Also, issues like health care should probably be handled at the state level, not federal level. I'm not sure how I feel about that one, because states reserved powers. I feel like human health, though, is something generic. It's something that should be systematic and across the board type of deal. So I'm not sure what factor would make it imperative that it be dealt with at a state level. I guess not even taxes. I know taxes are primarily the issue. Like, it has to, as much taxes as we get taken out, and I'm driving over beat up ass roads. If that money were to be redirected to healthcare instead, I would be happy as shit. But the problem is that I work and I work and work and I super work, and I come home with so little benefits that I actually enjoy. Because, sure, let's say that my tax money is religiously, very perfectly used and budgeted to ensure that roads are in absolute excellent condition at all times, 365 days a year. I don't drive that much. So there are sites of town that I don't visit for about 6 months. I'm not enjoying the road. I'm only consuming the road for 10 minutes. And it's because my job forces me to go out. And I do grocery shopping to sustain me for a week. So it's not like every evening I have to stop somewhere to buy things for me to consume. So at most in a week, I probably drive, let's see, work is about, I want to say it's about 3.5 miles from here. So let's round it to 4. That's 8 miles a day. So in a week, I'm only traveling like 40 miles in a week using a road. And some weeks I have 3 days off. So like that's 3 days, 1 day less that I'm not using the road much. Like, am I really breaking down the road that much? Is my car really contributing to like the decline of roads? No, that is absurd. So I am not sure why that wouldn't be something dealt with federally. But of course, different states have different problems. Like, say, Michigan, they have a lot of environmental issues, certain sectors. So I can see why it would be better to deal with it at a state level so that, say, the federal level, it's like everyone dumps their money into this giant pot, but then some communities may not see. If we were to divide everything by, to keep it simple, everybody gets $100 no matter what. Well, in places where you're at a greater disadvantage, $100 is not going to do for me what it could do for someone else. So if I think about it that way, sure, but I would need more information on that one. But I just know that it's something that every human being has a right to have, as opposed to it being treated like a product. Because it's just absurd for me to treat it as a product. Especially if you are trying to say that your religious values are strong, then wouldn't the best act of mankind be to make sure that everyone who doesn't feel well has access to feeling better so that they can continue to be a good worker, a good parent, a good sister, a good, you know, keep contributing to society healthily, as opposed to, oh, you get sick, your finances are not strong, that's the end of you. And you're guided by religious values. What kind of religion would actively allow for some people to be condemned to a terrible life just because they had to pick between feeling well and living, or dying, or being in pain? It just doesn't have room in my brain. But someone out there finds it sensical to where this has been the way things are for ever since we have had the like the healthcare industry existing as we know it. But anyway, if other places have made it possible, I don't understand why we can't make it possible. Let the states handle their community issues and leave the feds out of it. Okay, gotta run. Just wanted to say hey. Yes, I need to head off as well. See you later, Sam. See you later, Jack. College kids don't understand that their books are free with any scanner. True. True that. College is only relevant if you're trying to get a certificate for medical work. Yeah, I also find that college is just not for everybody. And that should be okay. That should be promoted. Like, hey, don't feel bad if you don't feel completely driven by the idea of going to college. There's nothing wrong with it. But I feel like we have created this culture of, if you don't go college, you are doomed to fail. Like, no, that teach people to be more um, independent, be more oriented for starting up your own thing. But probably that value, that idea is not promoted because it would result in potential competition. And the big companies that have a monetary financial say power in politics, they would be like, hey, we want to do everything in our power to boost our profits. And we cannot do that if we have lots of competition, because competition forces us to be competitive with our prices, our wages for our workers. We don't like that. So maybe that's why our education system honestly contributes to to a certain degree to the dumbing of people, because how often are we thinking this way? We tend to be conditioned into thinking this way, you know? And it's sad. It's We should be able to sue someone for this. Functional or not, who will make me laugh now, the next life, or 1,000 years from now? Stay awesome. Oh, Jesus. I will still open the door for you. I am old school. Victimhood. Yep, I work a lot. People don't care. Seems like they want a free handout. On the note of the way in politics, I guess it's more the liberals. They get accused of being people who want more stuff for free and handouts and whatnot. My personal perception of it, I guess, is the way they communicate their necessity may not be the most effective, but I think that people are looking for ways to not have to associate their lives with it being a constant struggle to pursue the very basic assets that make your life feel modern. I intend to make a video about this in the near future, but to make the point as condensed as possible, if we have had many generations before us who have done so much work, laid the groundwork, and we have inherited that, shouldn't our work be easier, less strain driven? Like, I cannot find the proper word right now. That's why I want to prepare for it. But we should have inherited a much better life, and we already did. Fortunately, we are born into, say, the roads being done, airports being built, whatever. But why is it that as, say, companies gain more power, that means that socioeconomically our gap is so much wider, and they are the ones who get to decide and implement the rules of the game? It's like the game is only played by them, but what about the rest of us? We are victims of your decisions. There are consequences to your actions. There are consequences to your prices. Your inventions have consequences. Like, say, if you make us too dependent on the cell phone to carry out certain things, we're going to forget other skills. And because you are promoting the dependence on the cell phone, once people become too dependent on that, and there are consequences associated with that, like, let's say that something happens and cell phone usage is affected, just like not knowing how to do math by hand. If all of your calculators just malfunction, would you be able to do the mathematics that you need to, say, keep track of your banking? Let's say that the bank is just not following through with your transactions the way you're supposed to, and you need to now manually track that. Would you be able to, realistically, would you be able to calculate all that? Like, say, I have this cool graph that shows me how much spending I'm doing on what. Like, how much is automotive expenses, how much is home supplies expenses, stuff like that, entertainment expenses. That's cool. Would I be able to manually calculate that without this tool doing it for me? That's what I'm trying to say. If you condition people to being dependent to modern tools, but you don't give them the basics, then when disaster strikes, you cannot be upset that these people cannot fend for themselves. So I feel like we need to help those who keep being driven to furthering themselves. Sure, you can have those individual goals, but do not impose your values onto us. Some of us literally don't have interest in, I guess, being the best at delivery services. I don't care for that, because I don't have an issue taking myself to the store. Maybe, and this is when, earlier I was saying how you need to make a decision where it affects a number of people positively, but it doesn't affect the others. If you want to have the driverless car, you go right ahead. But I will forever prefer to be my own driver, unless something catastrophic happens to me or I'm physically impeded from doing that. But it's not fair that you're going to make a law now. Let's pretend this is happening in some dystopian future. But now you're going to create laws in which nobody can drive their own car. What about my freedom? Why do I have to be dependent on my vehicle being enabled to be driverless? I don't care for that. I want to have control of my driving because I like to drive. Let's say I like to drive out of a hobby. Don't deprive me of my hobby just because you feel like driverless cars are going to be safer forever. What if there is a factor on the road that just happens out of the blue? My instinct and reaction as a human being can save my life, but my driverless car may not be able to have as wise decisions as mine. So make decisions that still let people have power over themselves, as opposed to the richer some people get, the less likely it is that we will achieve financial stability, because these people are becoming less and less aware of what life really is. I find that every single motherfucker ever who says that we are not deserving of an extra, I don't know, $2,000 per month, to name some crazy discussion I heard one time. It's always the people who are already well off who are telling those who aren't well off that they don't need the extra $2,000. No! Some people will mismanage those extra $2,000. There are some others who are going to turn that into the next multi-million dollar business. There are others who are going to save it for emergencies. Why do you care how it gets invested once it's already in the hands of the other person? Like, you're the intended recipient of this money for financial support. Whatever financial support means to that individual, just make it happen. Don't question them. But that is what upsets me. It's the people who are disconnected and blinded and numb to other people's experiences. They're the ones who are quick to rule over your life and try to tell you what's best for you. Like racial politics, I feel like it's always non-black people trying to tell black people what it is that they need to do so that they can live better lives. And I'm like, no, unless you're a part of the community, your opinion don't matter. So let those people be. They know what works for them. The one thing that you can do is not actively oppress them or keep them disadvantaged. you know so that's what I would like to see. I would like to see that we acknowledge that some stuff simply is not okay to allow to continue without, let's say, without red tape, without a degree of regulation. Because I do feel like people's incomes should be regulated if it's causing other people to be at a disadvantage for no reason. But how could you go about that? I'm not entirely sure. It's not something that I have really dwelt on. But I really think that at a certain point, the amount of power a single individual can have in a society, it needs to be checked. And whatever words are associated with that, call it, is that what they call socialism or communism, like economic styles? Call it whatever you want. But again, you cannot deny that this is affecting society in positive ways. Like, I'm grateful that when it gets stormy out, I don't have to lose power, and that capitalism, I guess, motivates people to keep going out to work so that we can enjoy our modern life as it is. But if we have to reform or reform the way that we live currently, to make it more simple, why not? Like, most of us have achieved the level of comfort that we want. We just want to be able to enjoy it more. Like, for me, I would like to not need to work for money anymore. Especially enjoy my youth, because I find that repulsive that I have to work until I'm like 65, and physically and mentally, emotionally broken. And then that's when I can maybe consider enjoying my life if I'm financially well off. Not everyone gets educated on finances at the same rate. So you shouldn't have to condemn someone who was born into a household where the finances were not the strongest and your access to education was limited, and therefore you did not make wise financial decisions when you were in your 20s. And therefore, that has to haunt you toward the end of your days. No! Why does life have to be that way? If we're not all good at playing this game, you shouldn't be horribly penalized for it. So that is why I support and understand the people who express themselves so negatively about the way we conduct our lives presently, because it's a lot of luck, a lot of, you know, the right person, and the right person will set you up and whatnot, and merit, sure, and it takes you places here and there, but there's no need to deny that everybody's opportunities will be different. So why must you be penalized for not having had the proper opportunity at the proper time? Why is that fair? It's not fair. And that's what I personally like to challenge. That's what I would like to see change in my lifetime. But I feel like it's improbable. But at least we are initiating the conversations that have the potential of leading us in the right direction. And as a woman of faith, I have faith that whatever needs to happen will happen. There's no way that this is sustainable. You must live in a high density area. Yes, I live in a city, but I cannot say that this is the most powerful city in the world. But there's definitely people who are very well off around here. Are you talking veganism? Maybe. Move. Yeah, sure. Moving is not expensive at all. I absolutely have a moving budget to live wherever it is that I please, right? So, yeah, when people try to suggest things like that, like, oh, change your job or move to another state or to like a different town or something, there have been many times in which I have wanted to move, but my job will not sponsor me moving. And if I don't have money in the bank to move, then I just cannot move. And if I were to move and adopt circumstances that do not favor me, like say, temporarily live on a shelter until I save money to be able to live in some places, again, that means that the things that I'm building are going to have to suffer, and that will put me at a disadvantage. There is some stuff that I have to constantly be on top of. And if I were to move to, like, say, some kind of shelter or have a place where I can have free housing, but I have to share it with others, there are things that I have that are of value that are business related. And I could not possibly stay behind guarding that stuff because it's valuable, you know? So it's not always a good solution, especially if your decisions are limited by finances, limited finances. Let's see. I love females, but I rebuke them as equal. They want to be firemen without the raw male strength. Now that I definitely, completely, totally agree. The females who be trying to dominate fields that are intended for males to dominate. I'm not saying don't be involved in the business, but know your place. Do not try to compete with someone. You don't have any chances of being better than. I would rather be rescued by a man from situations like that, like a fire or something, because I know that you have more physical endurance. I'm not saying that a woman cannot possibly ever save my life, but I'm just saying that she can be susceptible to factors that can put us both at a disadvantage. Now she's risking her life, and risking my life. Like, say, if something happens and physically you cannot output the performance required for the rescue mission, that concerns me. So, if you want to be involved in the fireman business, maybe be there as some kind of assistant. But women look at that as offensive these days. The modern woman gets really sensitive about being told that men are better at some things than they are. Well, I personally think that there's a lot of things that women can do that I just cannot imagine preferring a man over a woman. And some of it could be something like childcare. I'm not saying that a man is not capable of childcare, but I just know that there are certain traits that we possess that would enrich my child a little better. But I think it's insane that you try to implement changes into an industry that does not favor those changes. And it would hurt the industry to implement those changes. So when it comes to that, that is why I'm like, man, I cannot jump on the what wave of feminism are we in? The fifth, the third. Um, no, there's some stuff that we need to have control, and I don't object when it comes to that. I like poker and strip clubs. Let me get that second stimulus. Uh, the fact that the word stimulus is there. That's funny. Three things that are communism, LGBT agenda, socialist agenda, and vegan agenda. You know what? On the note of veganism, I see their intentions, but unfortunately they are flawed because vegans have this agenda in part like be more plant-based and eating animals is bad, killing animals is bad, yada yada. But what they don't realize, or I think they choose to not realize, is that some of their decisions may actually inflict more damage than the way things are done already. Just because you're not actively eating an animal doesn't mean that an animal did not have to suffer at some point to produce what you're consuming. The best example that I had in mind escaped me, but there's some stuff that is still contributing to the issue, whether you try to avoid it or not. And this is definitely the one that concerns me the most. If even if you're vegan, you would have to support your diet with supplements because there's just some stuff that is essential to our body that only is found naturally recurring in animal products, but you refuse to consume animal products. So how are you going to ensure that you're going to remain healthy when your diet plan has flaws? And also, veganism in general is just more expensive. So like you cannot impose this value on people when some people may not have a choice. Like if I cannot afford a $10 meatless burger and I go for the beef burger because it's $6 or something, you cannot condemn me for that. I have to eat. But you're trying to tell me that I would, I need to either opt for financial irresponsibility or just stay hungry or something. It's not fair for you to demand that of me. And besides, there are certain religious practices that may need to involve an animal. So you're even going against certain religions. Um, that is offensive. And I find that veganism likes to also hold hands with like social justice. I'm not saying that that is inherent, that that is an absolute fact, but it's part of the trend. Um, where is your social justice there for like the people who simply cannot make that work? in their lives for whatever reason. You're all about acceptance and things. So, in the same manner that we can accept for you to refuse to eat animal products and wear animal products, consume animal products, did you forget that you yourself are a fucking animal? So, like, don't you think that an animal might need resources from another animal to remain functional? What makes you think you're so special? And, but anyway, that's me just going off on a banter there. But yeah, I find that vegans may have the best intentions, you have the right thoughts in your mind, but when it comes to execution, it doesn't work for everybody. And that's the problem. You need to come up with something that will work for everybody and not, say, financially impact some people or interfere with other people's religions. You know? I took the risk of streaming without plugging my phone in, and I cannot see what level my battery is on. So I do not know how much longer I can hang out for. But I'm going to try to breeze through the rest of the comments, and then I gotta leave. I am over 250 pounds and 6 feet tall. I don't want to take her outfit and save her. I lost sanity when vegans call their food chicken-free chicken meat. Oxymoron, bro. Yeah, that's weird. Like the beefless burger patty, the meatless burger. To me, burgers have always had meat. And what else is out there? That chickenless chicken tender and that steak. There's one about steak, but I forget. Oh, the crabless crab cake. You know? Just call it something else as opposed to piggybacking off pre-established foods and dishes. You know? Be creative. Exploit that character trait, creativity. But yeah, you guys, I will conclude my rambling here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have enjoyed everything that I had to say and that I usually have to say. And just know that I'm really trying my best to make streaming and vlogging a daily part of my life again, like I used to. And hopefully there should be no reason now why that cannot happen. The oxymoron is real in them, just call it vegetable nuggets. I really think that they should just rename their entire products. I don't know what kind of a name you could come up with, but it's strange that if you're trying to promote not consuming animal products, you will design your food to resemble that meat food that we know. Maybe change the color. Or maybe, how about this? If it's plant-based, plants are typically green or edible flowers, they can be purple, maybe white, yellow. Make that be the color of your food. Make that be the shape of your food. Oh, but the consumer may not consume something if it doesn't look attractive. Well, maybe be the person to instigate the change that people should not care about the appearance of something, but instead care about the functionality of something. Most people in the world would probably agree that supercars are beautiful and majestic vehicles to look at. But do I need to be driving a Ferrari to enjoy the perks of having a car? No. To me, my Corolla makes me happy with what it can do. It functions in the same manner that the Ferrari carries around that rich person. I don't care about the appearance of my car as long as it gets the job done. Now, if someone runs into it and you wreck it, yes, I'm going to care about that appearance because the functionality of my car is being affected. If you broke my window, yes, I'm going to be mad because now I don't have weather protection. And stuff like that. If you're vandalizing my vehicle and that alters its appearance, yes, I will care. But a lot of the decisions we make are based on how something looks, the aesthetics of it. I'm not against you settling for things that you find cool, but just know that sometimes you will not be able to honor that. And say, there have been times where my mom had to own a really ugly looking vehicle, but at least at the end of the day, I was grateful that I didn't have to walk to the supermarket on stormy days or whatever. So aesthetics is not something I value, because if that were the case, then there are some guys that I would not have dated. That's all I have to say. And I would really hope that someone looks at me and they're like, she's funny, her personality is sweet, she's really responsible financially and whatnot. She's not someone toxic, but damn, she ugly. So I have to turn her down. Like, no, sure, aesthetics can help you when it comes to looking at someone, and it's part of the appeal, I guess. It can help fuel the romance if that's something that you value. But if a human being cannot control how they look like, don't give them a tough time for it. Just focus on other things that would actually make you happy. Because don't forget that you will fucking get old, and when you age, you may not resemble who you resemble today. What then? Like, you have to, your love is gonna die because someone looks different. Isn't that dumb as hell? So maybe settle for something more sustainable, something that can last, like quality, personality traits. But anyway, that's just my opinion. You guys know that I'm just weird like that. But anyways, guys, that's it from me. I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.